Hey Gears, Coach Fitz back here. We're going to be talking about the Zero Waste Solution by Paul Connett right now. It's the second video in this series, hoping to get everybody up to speed on how garbage is used in the United States. So the Zero Waste Solution has a focus on how to make less waste with the goal of having zero waste, whereas the previous book, Garbageology, was really just a study of, well, how much waste is produced and where does it go. So let's get started. The author has pretty strong opinions, and you can find people that will agree and disagree with the author, and it's important for you to have an open mind to be able to evaluate what the author claims and to be able to take from it what we need and understand that not everything is just from one point of view. The first fact that the author talks about is that we would need 5 Earths to sustain our current lifestyle in North America. So we don't have 5 Earths. Western Europe would need almost 3 Earths. The author feels we're not sustainable. That's really what this graph is designed to say. And the author has some approaches, some ideas for how we might become more sustainable. So right now, the author says we live in this world where we buy things in a shopping mall and then we throw them away when we're done with them. And if you can think of any number of examples. In the previous book, we talked about cell phones. A lot of people get new cell phones every 2 years. They then get... Oh, I am recording. Sorry, got confused there for a second. So those materials then end up in the municipal incinerator, so in the previous book, Edward Humes didn't necessarily think that the incinerator was all that bad because we need to be pragmatic and solve problems. Paul Connett, on the other hand, really feels that incinerators are very bad, and he makes the case for that in this book. So landfills and incinerators, one of the things that Paul Connett tries to explain is that the extraction of virgin materials, the production of manufactured items, is producing solid waste, air pollution, water pollution, carbon dioxide, which is all leading to global warming. And what he would like to do is see us move toward extracting less virgin materials and taking the discarded materials and plugging them back into our manufacturing process. And he feels that if we were to do that, by eliminating the extraction of virgin materials, we're being more efficient, we're producing less waste. In fact, he goes one step further to say that if we produced less and we just reused more, that in fact that would be twice as good. Now he's not providing any numbers, he's not providing any equations, this is an idea to say, well, if we're extracting less from the planet and we're producing less and we're reusing things more, it's going to be better for everyone and going to reduce global warming. He feels that this process of recycling, reusing, reducing, redesigning is going to get us toward a more sustainable society. And again, with this figure, there's no equations or graphs or numbers or details. It's really more of a philosophy, an approach. So zero waste is a new direction. What he wants to do is stop using incinerators, stop using landfills, and then start with families like ours. And so we would try to compost our food waste, and we would try to use reusable bags and use mason jars and do all the things that we can do. Then his next level, he talks about responsible political leadership. So for example, San Francisco in 2007 banned the use of plastic bags. So that would be an example of responsible political leadership. And then you look at industrial responsibility, where manufacturers decide on their own to use products that don't produce as much waste and are more reusable. So for example, the Fiddlehead Brewery refills all the growlers right there at the brewery so that they're not producing a lot of packaging waste, and they made that decision for themselves. The author says there are basically 10 steps that we can take to get toward a zero waste solution. We have source separation, which is to separate, for example, the trash from the composting from the recycling. Door-to-door collection systems mean that you separate these things at home, but then somebody comes to pick them up separated. That more people do composting. So composting means you take your food scraps and you convert it into soil. More recycling means that the items that we have are actually getting to the recycling center to be reused. And then we've got reuse, repair, and deconstruction. And we're going to talk more about that. We've actually made an appointment to go to Resource Vermont, which is where they take furniture and appliances that other people have abandoned, and they restore them and then put them back into use. Waste reduction initiatives are where we might learn to be able to say no to goods and items that we don't want or need, and providing an economic incentives for those, which means, like, for example, at Healthy Living, you can show up and bring your reusable bag and they will give you a credit on your purchase. A better industrial design means that the facilities are located near one another for how you might recycle or reuse, to make it easier for those processes to happen. And the residual separation and research facilities is kind of tricky. It really has to do with what's left over from the trash salvaging process. In this slide, you see a farmer that's got a mustard plant, and they're trying to show how the long roots of the mustard plant are pulling carbon out of the atmosphere and getting it into the roots in the soil. This is a photo from a store that is reusing building materials. So when a house is torn down or upgraded or remodeled, the contractors bring the materials that can be used again to this warehouse where somebody else can come in and buy it. This here shows Resource Vermont. I was very excited to find this in the book, and I'm excited that we've been in contact with them, and they're going to agree to meet with us next week. What they do is they take materials that nobody else wants, and they convert them into things like tables and chairs and things that people will want. The author spent a lot of time talking about a zero-waste solution eco-park, where, and if we just kind of go around as counterclockwise, we can start at the composting facility, the reuse center, the Center for Hard to Recycle Materials, the Construction Demolition Center, Materials Recovery Facility. I'm going to not talk a whole lot about the residue facility. That's really how they process with all the stuff that's left over, and it's not really clearly explained anywhere. There should be an office with doing educational outreach at the front, and then a nice place to park and to be able to see the whole facility. San Francisco started this. They're just a little bit bigger than Vermont, 850,000 people, and they have been able to reduce the amount of trash going to a landfill to 80% from where they were in 2000, I think it was 7 when they started, which is fantastic, and San Francisco is really excited about it, and they did very specific efforts to use the zero waste top 10 steps. They used about 5 of those top 10 steps. This is showing the author was talking about how in Italy people can go and get wine bottles refilled, so they're reusing their wine bottles, and Fiddlehead Brewery does the same thing right over in Shelburne. This is showing some students in Italy that are drinking from crystal and using steel forks and knives and cloth napkins, and these are a lot of things that the students at Orchard were doing. This is showing a residual screening facility, and they were just talking about how it's in close proximity to the landfill, which makes everything more efficient so things aren't being shipped all over the place. This is showing some trash that some students were using, and they discovered there are all these single-use coffee things, kind of like the Keurig cup. And we recognized that when we were doing Odyssey of the Mind this year and created one of our villains based on a Keurig cup after we saw the movie, The Invasion of the Keurig Cups. In fact, because those Keurig cups are not recyclable, and people are pretty upset with how many are being produced, and the man who originally came up with them is mortified that it's been such a kind of an environmental issue to deal with those cups, and they've since come up with some other ways to manage it, some reusable cups, so hopefully that's moving in the right direction. So this is an illustration designed to show you all the factors that are in play to get us toward a zero-waste society. So there's education for sustainability, architecture, energy, economic development, community development, jobs, agriculture. There's all kinds of ways for people to participate. If we're successful with our research, hopefully we'll be able to visit a farm, visit some businesses, and hopefully we'll be able to make some contributions in education. As I claimed earlier, the author's not real excited about incinerators. These are the top 10 reasons why the author doesn't like incinerators. This is a diagram showing how the author believes that it's far better to recycle versus incinerating in terms of energy consumption. This is showing how an incinerator works, and you can click pause on this and take a look at the graphic, but basically what happens is trash is burned, it produces steam, the steam makes electricity, and then it's converted to ash and some gases that are filtered in a wide variety of ways. The problem with the ash is that the ash is really, really small and it's toxic and it spreads, as you can see here in Gloucester in the UK, with the ash everywhere. Here you can see the ash covering a sign, which is also pretty concerning because it's far away from where the landfill was. This is an ash repository in Haverhill, Mass. that was featured in the book. That's close enough that we could go visit it if we got excited about ash and incinerators. This graphic is showing that what it's trying to show is that the particles are very small that are produced by ash, and they can get into the air and can be really nasty and bad. So this is showing over time how San Francisco did. So they were starting in 2000 with 50% of their waste being diverted to recycling or to an incinerator, and then by 2012 it was 80%. San Francisco has this classic approach. You guys have probably seen it at school or at Healthy Living, where they have a trash section, a composting section, and a recycling section. That's done all over San Francisco, including in restaurants. And San Francisco took a really aggressive stand to educate people about it, doing things like taking out ads on the sides of buses encouraging people to compost. Here, an educator is doing some outreach at, I believe it's at a farmer's market in San Francisco. And even the city trash cans are sorted out by recycle, compost, and waste. So in this graphic, the author is showing what the author hopes will be the 12 master categories at the Eco Park, trying to make people see that, you know what, this isn't so bad. We can make this work. We just need to be committed to it.